Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, Sad, Confused begins now.
I'm Josh Horowitz, and today on Happy, Sad, Confused, it's Halloween week, so we're celebrating with a master of horror. He loves monsters and gothic horror and anything creepy. It's the one and only Guillermo Del Toro in a flashback conversation from 2015. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. That's right, this is a bonus episode for you guys this week, and this is a very old episode, but a really special one. This was the first time Guillermo del Toro ever did Happy, Sad, Confused, way back when in 2015, and I listened to this one back and I thought there's no better guest to talk scary movies in the season that is Halloween. This was on the occasion of his release of Crimson Peak, which was kind of ignored, frankly, at the box office, but was a personal favorite of mine and remains such to this day. And I think you guys are going to really dig this career conversation with Guillermo way back when in 2015. Before we get to that, let me remind you folks, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing with your lives? Every week we give you one, if not two, amazing conversations with the best filmmakers and actors on the planet. Remember to hit that subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, if you're listening, subscribe wherever you get your podcast to Happy, Sad, Confused. For nearly 10 years, we've been giving you the best and the brightest in film and TV. All we ask from you is that little subscription button. Anyway, before we get to the Guillermo conversation, I want to tease one very exciting thing coming up. In about 2 weeks, I believe, we are going to be debuting a new mini-series spin-off, if you will, of Happy, Sad, Confused that I've been working on for a long while. I'm not going to say what it is just yet, but it is a project that is very close to my heart, and I think if you enjoy what I do and enjoy deep film conversations with great filmmakers, this is going to be a really special series for you. So stay tuned. Like I said, now's the time to hit that subscribe button because we have a really cool series coming up for you. It's going to be in the Happy, Sad, Confused feed on YouTube and in your podcast feed, so you won't be able to miss it if you hit subscribe. Just wanted to tease that. It's coming very soon. We've been shooting a bunch of really cool things, and soon enough, all will be revealed. That's your tease this week. Okay, so some context. This conversation with Guillermo del Toro took place in my little office when we were doing these things in person and doing them off camera. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're not going to be able to see us gesticulating wildly, but you know what Guillermo and I look like. We'll have a still image so you can look at that while you listen to this great conversation. But he has since done the podcast, I think, at least twice since this 2015 conversation. But on this occasion, as I said, we were talking Crimson Peak. But when I listened back, I realized this is a really good one to share because it does capture the arc of his career. His early influences, his love of Hitchcock, goes all the way back to CRONOS, going to Cannes, and him hitting it big there. His struggles on Mimic, a little bit on those Hobbit years when he was going to direct that, and kind of the lost years of Guillermo del Toro, Pacific Rim, his comeback, and even a little bit on Star Wars back then, which, of course, recently we made some news on Happy, Sad, Confused in our conversation with David Goyer, and you'll hear in this 2015 conversation, indeed, Guillermo was thinking about that Jabba the Hutt movie way back when. So there's a lot in this chat to enjoy. I know if you love movies as much as I do, you're going to really dig it. So here it is. For your ears and for your eyes to an extent, please enjoy my 2015 conversation with the legend that is. He is a legend. You can't just throw that word around, but you can when it's Guillermo del Toro. Please enjoy this conversation with the master that is Guillermo del Toro.
Mr. Del Toro, Guillermo, buddy.
Senor.
It's always good to see you, man.
Same here, man.
Truly, I was telling you before, I'm borderline obsessed with this one. I love it. I truly do.
I am obsessed with it, and I love it too. It's one of my 3 favorites I've done.
Yeah, so that's, which are the 3? Devil's Backbone?
Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, depending on the week they can switch, and then Crimson Peak right out.
See, I was going to say, like, when you finish a film, and this one you had a while to kind of, like, tinker and get it right, to say the least.
And tinker I did.
Did you really?
Horribly, and to the point of, I honestly, my post supervisor was keep him away.
It's like, let it go, Guillermo.
We did 12 musical sessions on the score, 12 musical sessions. We redesigned the sound 3 times. I mixed it 3 times. I color corrected it about 3 times more than any other movie. Like Pans was, next to this, Pans was the next one.
Yeah.
And I color corrected the cinematography in this movie 3 times more. I recut it, cut it, moved it, tried it, went crazy on the previews, tried things that were much longer until I got it to where I like it, you know.
Do you understand the instinct of the Ridley Scott and the George Lucas's that tinker even beyond release? Are you at this point, are you ready to let it go, or do you still, when you see it, do you still see many things?
I saw it the other day, and there's one scene I would cut out. So there you go.
So I mean, I'm happy to hear that you're pleased with it, as you should be, because I'm curious, like when a filmmaker completes the work that they've labored on for a while, do they see the flaws? Do they see? Are they proud? Like, are they psyched about it? You seem actually psyched about it and not sick of it, which is a good sign.
Yeah,
I think.
you know, there was a moment where I really was afraid for my sanity.
Why? What was happening?
Because I kept coming back and saying, I'm going to need to open. We were printing the final reels, you know, and I would say to the post supervisor, have you printed reel 5? No. Okay, we're going to open it again, and I'm going to take this line of dialogue out.
Right.
Really? I go, yeah. And to the point of obsession, you know.
It's funny. I mean, you begin the film. I believe literally the first line of dialogue is what goes surreal, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of, without ruining stuff for the audience, it's disingenuous. To me, I don't think of it as a ghost story. I feel like
it isn't.
It's a story that has some ghosts involved.
It's exactly what she says to the publisher. It's not a ghost story. It's a story with a ghost in it.
Yeah.
And look, Gothic romance in general is very important to understand. Gothic romance is not a horror film. Is atmospherically like a dark fairy tale with supernatural atmosphere and elements and scares, but it doesn't function as a horror film. And at the same time, Gothic romance is not pure romance.
Yeah.
Gothic romance was born out of the will to marry love and death.
Yeah.
And a nostalgic sense of loss. So it's a hugely romantic movie, but with a lot of darkness.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is like you describe yourself, and I think it's apt, like you're not a cynical filmmaker.
No,
you're very much a romantic that happens to just also love darkness, and there's some horrific imagery in all your films, but it comes from a romantic place, which is an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah. I get high on my own supply. I truly use my product, and I feel that even in something, when you approach an idea as insane as Pacific Rim, giant robots, giant monsters, I do it straight. I believe in giant robots. I'm not being ironic or postmodern.
Yeah.
Same with Gothic romance. I think the movie has this heightened tone of melodrama,
right? And
I went for broke for it, you know.
Plus, you threw in Tom Hiddleston's rear end.
Yeah, well, he was very, very eager to throw that rear end.
He suggested one day, "How about I just drop trout today?"
Can I be naked for the breakfast scene? No, Tom. We gotta wait for the love scene. Can I be naked in the waltz? No, Tom. Wait for the love scene.
We have the subplot, the subtext that I'm a nudist throughout the entire film. That doesn't work.
I think he was toning those buds.
Right.
Yeah.
He is a great romantic hero for this kind of a thing.
Yeah.
He fits this to a T.
He does, and look, I can tell you 2 or 3 ways to make Crimson Peak eminently more of a commercial ride that I don't take. You know, like you give the ghosts a moral or religious weight. They are evil, they're demonic, they're whatever. I refuse to do that. The ghosts are used in a really interesting way that relates to Devil's Backbone, actually, if people watch them. And the other thing is, instead of making the villains so hateful at the end that you want them to die, you create an empathy. And, you know, little by little, and the same was in Devil's Backbone, you give them their most humane moments as the movie advances, and it makes for a more moral gray area, but I'm really happy with that.
Are you a believer yourself in supernatural and ghosts?
I have. I mean, I have experienced that, and I believe. Because, and everybody in my family, most people have experienced that, you know. I don't know if it's in the water, but in Mexico it's more usual to encounter the strange and the supernatural.
What's the one that sticks out? Is there one incident that you think of?
Well, the one that sticks out was when we were scouting The Hobbit in New Zealand. I always got, when I stay in hotels, I look for the haunted room, and in Waitomo, and you can do it yourselves if you go to Wellington on New Zealand, in Waitomo there is a hotel, the Waitomo Hotel, and there is a room, I think it's 12C. where is famously a haunted room. And it was closed. The hotel was closed for the season. It was 8 of us. And the manager opened the hotel, really angry that we were making her open the hotel, gave us the keys and said, go. And I said, can I get the haunted room? And she said, oh, there you go. I go, I'm watching The Wire. I'm watching Omar and Stringer Bell, like doing a parlay, you know?
Sure.
Nothing haunting about it. And my Mac, and all of a sudden, and it's in the movie in Crimson Peak, I hear a horrible murder in the bathroom. Horrible. A woman...
Like screams? Just like...
A woman screaming, like you have never heard those screams. Huge pain. And then I get up, I look, I trace it to a vent in the wall. I listen, and it's a vent that goes to the cellar of the building. I get really jittery, but I sit down, ready to admit Stringer Bell into my life again. And I hear a guy sobbing loudly with regret. And then I put the earphones and I watched the whole season.
This is the only time The Wire is like a respite. It's the nice place to go.
Whoever got killed, I didn't care.
It's a romantic comedy now.
Because the room had a huge window, a balcony, and I swore, I was saying, I didn't want to go out into the corridors. I said, I don't know where the other 7 people are. And I'm not going to be running like Danny in the tricycle looking for who is there. And I swore that if I lifted my eyes from the computer to the balcony, there was going to be somebody knocking slowly in the window. I said, no, I'm not going to do that.
And the next day you left the Hobbit project. This was an omen.
I didn't sleep, and the next day we continued scouting up north.
You mentioned sounds, and I mean, like the sound design in this film is impeccable too. I kept thinking of like all those strange noises in a house that creep you out, and everybody has this growing up or to this day. What are the banal, ordinary sounds that get under your skin? Are there any? Are there like sounds that kind of creep you out just for?
Well, there's believe it or not, one of the ghosts. What we did is we grabbed the cooing of a baby, and which is very creepy to put it on top of a skeletal figure.
Right.
For example, the buzzing of a fly freaks me out for some reason. It's in the movie. And then there is a low frequency that is that affects us as mammals. I think it's a frequency that we used to sense as earthquakes or volcanoes. So it's ingrained in our DNA to react with fear to that low frequency, so that freaks me out too.
So since we have some time, I want to go back a little bit and jump around to the career. We've talked many times over the years, but this is kind of like, this is your life, Guillermo Del Toro. I want to go back to the beginning. Okay, so like, who was the biggest influence on your life, like growing up in terms of like pop culture? Who did you learn who did you inherit some tastes from or some proclivities towards?
Well, look, I studied very carefully Hitchcock. You cannot see it in my work, but I studied Hitchcock a lot. I liked that he was Catholic and repressed and fat, but also I loved that he really could verbalize what he was doing, and it didn't get in the way of the work of art. I loved that. I liked that he seemed to be a reflexive artist that could articulate what he was doing. Huge influence, George Miller, for example, strangely enough. I mean, I still emotionally, my favorite movie of all times is either Frankenstein or The Road Warrior. And if the world was burning, I would probably grab The Road Warrior. You know,
as a how-to manual to survive the apocalypse?
Well, I remember the same weekend I saw The Road Warrior and Blade Runner, and I came out of both instances transformed. Yeah. And I was in Vegas, and in The Road Warrior, I came out and I laid next to the pavement to see the grain of the pavement. I mean, I think that movie transformed a lot of people of my generation. Yeah. Same with Blade Runner, man. And
when I think I saw you last, I think we mentioned Fury Road. I think we were both obsessed with what George was able to do on that one.
At that age.
That's what I was going to say. Is like, you know, in recent years you've seen people like Scorsese and you've seen George Miller,
Wolf of Wall Street,
who are you know, they're directing like they're 25-year-olds that have never directed before. Yes. Is that something that you worry about? Like, how do you like steer yourself towards that as opposed to running out of ideas?
I have the great advantage that I was directing like I was 70 when I was 28.
So you're going in reverse. You're Benjamin Buttoning.
I'm Benjamin Buttoning. Yes. I think that is beautiful because there are when you have people that are in love with the craft, and you sense that these are people. George Miller is a fully undomesticated animal. It's a tiger that has not known a cage. Right. You know, and I love Mad Max was the stories about schedule and units, and he just went for it.
It felt like Warner Brothers just gave him like $150 million, sent him to Namibia, and he just brought back this amazing piece of art.
Amazing piece of art. I mean, and it's almost Max de Soleil, you know,
Right.
it's like balletic and acrobatic, and you know.
Totally.
Yeah.
So when you're growing up, by my math also, like you mentioned Blade Runner and Road Warrior, Star Wars came out probably when you were like 12 or 13 or something. Does that naturally blow the brain off of Guillermo Del Toro?
Well, what happened is I went to the first showing, I think it was 10 a.m., and I went around the block, and I went to the second showing, and I went around the block, and I went to every showing that day, consecutive. And because it was when people were not saying you gotta see it.
Right.
The world was much slower before the summer movies.
Right.
And I watched it all day long. And I was dying to get a toy. It was like surgically implanted in me to want toys.
Yeah.
And it's because George did, for the first time in an efficient way, a future that felt used. Like even Kubrick with 2001, which is impeccable and perfect.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful movie, but everything is new.
Yeah.
Oil drips are not there, and I think George broke that mold, followed almost immediately by Alien, Ridley Scott,
Yep.
who made it truckers in space, you know, with oil drips and bad repair jobs and steam coming out. I mean, I think that made science fiction real, wearing it down. Before that, it was people in tutus, or you know, speaking in strange tongues with shiny apparatus and lights. This is the moment
it was lived in. It was
lived in. Yeah.
I mean, you know, we talked how like you've been offered virtually every kind of comic book franchise at various points over the career. Is Star Wars a universe that like is too sacred in a way that you would want to play with? Have you talked to them at all?
I feel strangely more and more inclined lately to go and do more strange stuff. Mm-hmm. Like do stuff that is a little more cagey, a little more quirky. I don't know. When I spoke to them, I spoke with John Knoll about it, and I said, if I ever do one, I would love to do Jabba the Hutt's Scarface,
right?
You know? His ascension in the crime family.
Totally.
Know? But it's not a plan. I'm not announcing it, please. Don't pick it up.
But it does feel like, like I wouldn't pick you necessarily to do like episode 9, but I feel like you could rather give
monsters.
You should give your flavor to some side bizarre story.
I just love monsters. Man. Yeah. And Jabba is basically my same shirt size, and second, I love it, man.
Jumping around a bit, I watched CRONOS last week for the first time in a long while. It still holds up. It's an amazing piece of work. When that came, and you got a lot of accolades off of that, I believe you were celebrated in Cannes for it.
Yeah.
Was that
we won the Critics' Week, yeah.
I mean, was that a relief? Because it was like you've been building towards this. And what happens if it comes out and no one cares?
I tell you, I went to CRONOS. I was 28, and our promotional budget for Cannes was 10 posters and a roll of Scotch tape. And I said to my wife, you think 10 posters would be enough? She says, I think more than enough. We come out of the plane.
Ever the optimist.
We were come out of the plane, and Arnold Schwarzenegger in the last section here is floating over the bay with a sawed-off shotgun. Giant billboards. And I go restaurant to restaurant saying, can I glue my poster in your window? Yes or no. And I glue the posters, and then I say, how many movies are in Critics' Week? And they were like 100, and all of them were nominated for the prize. Yeah. And I said, all right, let's enjoy the sun. And then we win. I mean, it changed my life. You know, 2 times I felt that moved. The other time was when we finished CRONOS we asked for a loan personally of $250,000 on a 20-something-year-old. And my house was a guarantee, blah, blah, blah. And when we won a contest where the first prize was like 100 and something, I stood there with the giant check, like Miss Universe, crying and saying, thank you. And these are the beginnings, and the beginnings are very delicate. Yeah. I think it never stops being delicate, but the first and second movie are the hardest. Yeah. If the first one's good, then everybody says, let's see what he does on the second one. Mercifully for me, I did Mimic. So
you went through it. Between those two ends of the spectrum.
That's just like, there you go, guys. So, but you know, the second one is difficult.
Clearly, and it was for you. I mean, there was a lot going on. I mean, your personal life, too, that was around the time when your dad was...
My dad was taken for 72 days.
An insane story. So, when did you know that project was going to hell?
Mimic?
Yeah.
Oh... You know, I got the sense of it one day when I got into a conference call. No, we were in a conference table, and Michael Phillips, one of the producers, for the longest time they were bark beetles that fed on the trees of Central Park, and they propagated a disease through the air, blah blah. And all of a sudden, Michael Phillips says, "What if we make them cockroaches?" And I just felt, this is the end. That's it. And then everybody said, "That's a great idea, New York." And I said, "Listen," I said this, I really did. I said, "From now on, no matter what we do, we're going to be the Giant Roach movie." "Oh, no, you're wrong. This is very..." And what were we? The Giant Roach movie.
Would you ever work with the Weinsteins again, or is that too much?
You know, we have a friendship. I mean, we get along. We see each other. Is, you know, never say never, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I part of me loves Bob, and I love Harvey.
Yeah.
I really get along with Harvey.
Since then, do you feel like it seems to me, looking at what you've produced since then, you really haven't made any compromises. Like, do you ever feel like you have had to make a compromise artistically on any of your projects?
Never again, never again. Every movie, if you like it or hate it, is my fault.
Yeah.
You know, I think that from then on I've been free.
Step into a world of non-stop action on DraftKings Casino. Play the classics like blackjack, roulette, and slots, plus enjoy exclusive games you can't find anywhere else. Right now, new customers can get a deposit match up to $100 in casino credits when you deposit $5 or more. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable, and you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you're ready, guys. Download the DraftKings Casino app now. Sign up with promo code HAPPYSAD, and new customers get a deposit match up to $100 in casino credits when you deposit $5 or more. Only on DraftKings Casino with promo code HAPPYSAD. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Please play responsibly. In partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. All games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org, 21 and over. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. One per opted-in new customer. Minimum $5 deposit. Maximum match $100. In casino credits, which require one times playthrough within 7 days. See terms at casino.draftkings.com/playerschoice. Restrictions apply.
You reference, and I don't want to go into certainly exploit what was a personal, hardship for your entire family, but the incident with your dad, is that something that colors though your work, you think, in any way? Does it? I know you've decided never to kind of like do a story about it in any way, but do you feel like it informs any of your work in any way?
I don't know how. I mean, it probably does. I mean, look, the fact is I can explain my movies to a certain degree, but that's my reading. The movies have or must have another reading that somebody else need to do if they're interested. I'm not, I when people say, oh, you classify them this way and maybe it's a simplistic way or not, but that's how I articulate them. Yeah. There must have a second reading. I mean, there is an extreme preoccupation with death, of course, but I'm not sure it permeated. It made me a better person, that's for sure.
How so? What? Just in appreciating?
Well, it's weird because until my dad was kidnapped, I had his shadow over me in a big way. Like I was his son. He was a very famous man. Yeah. He was a big man, and then when he came out, I was a man and he was a man. Just another guy. Yeah. And I loved him, but he was not this childhood giant. Sure. It was a guy that I loved, so it was very different.
What about having kids? Does that change? I mean, certainly you're
everything.
Well, it certainly doesn't feel like your films have softened in any way.
No, but I actually became incredibly sensitive to the female protagonists, to actresses, to what they do in my films. If I didn't have my kids, I wouldn't have been able to do Pan's Labyrinth. I wouldn't have been able to do Crimson Peak, which is incredibly female-centric,
sure.
And I'm very aware of the power of my wife, my daughters. Is just their power is so strong, and I always wonder how can any artist represent women in any other way but strong, because everybody around me, my mother, everybody, all the women I know are strong and powerful and full of a core that we lack.
Yeah. You've got two great performances in this one, Mia and Jessica. I know it's a great acting stretch for her because in real life she's always smiling, and in this film I don't think she smiles once.
Yeah, and look, I made it very clear to both of them, you're going to represent two sides of love. Mm-hmm. And two sides of love, not towards a man, just two sides of an understanding love, and they need to be fully convinced that each of them is right.
Sure.
Like each of them needed to be the protagonist in her own mind, you know?
Well, we talk about not making compromises because I think of Hellboy, where you really stood fast with your soulmate, Mr. Ron Perlman.
Another 8 years.
and he was someone that was not necessarily the studio's pick, to say the least.
When I used to say Ron Perlman, they say the owner of Revlon. no, the actor, the guy.
We'll get that one barking in the thing too. It'll be perfect.
Yeah. No, it was.
But they wanted like Vin Diesel, right? Did you ever
Nicolas
consider
Cage,
it?
Vin Diesel, The Rock, you know?
Did they make a compelling argument for any of those? Were you tempted at all?
No. I mean, I just said, look, I would tell Ron, I'm going to take the meeting, but don't worry. Mm-hmm. And then I would take the meeting and say, I'd rather go with Ron. And then every time they would come back, I had a meeting with a super powerful producer, and he said, your movie's green lit, but it's not going to be Ron Perlman. That's all I'm asking. Same script. And I said, this is not my movie. I mean, and I always had this certainty after Mimic. See, Mimic did that for me. Mimic taught me the most powerful word in the English language. No. and the thing is, at the end of the day, your name is on the movie, you're responsible. You can tell stories, or I can tell you, oh, it's you. If you didn't bail, if you stayed and your name is on it, don't tell me, oh, sure. you own the crap. Yeah.
The last couple of years at Comic-Con, you've pulled the audience on Hellboy. Ron's been actively trying to get this going lately. Yeah. Has the studio expressed any interest? Is it all from you guys? Like, is there any? The
last serious conversation I had about Hellboy 3 was with Ron Perlman at a coffee bean in Ventura.
It doesn't get any more official than that. That's how movies are green lit.
That's practically green lit. So, it was Ron with his vanilla frappuccino about 4 weeks ago.
Right.
I mean, I adore that guy, man. I mean, he really is my brother, and I would love to do it. I would love to do Hellboy 3, and I frankly, honestly, part of me is maybe not savvy enough, but I understand why they do it. Because the two Hellboys made a lot of money on DVD and Blu-ray.
Right.
They made enough money theatrically, but the DVD and Blu-ray markets are gone.
Yeah.
But I honestly think, I may be deluded, that there is, the character has grown into an audience that really wants it.
Well, and also the international markets have exploded, and I feel like that's a character that transcends, can transcend.
I mean, I would do it in a second, but no one's knocking. And Ron is on this almost
it's a crusade, yeah. Don't get in his way.
I don't. I tell you, I'll do anything for that guy, man.
In the course of my being at MTV, it kind of coincided with what was probably a frustrating period of time for you. I mean, we were talking a lot during the development of The Hobbit, etc. And
2 years,
yeah, and there's that like
Mountains of Madness right after,
and so there will always, for good or for bad, there will always be that 5 or 6 year gap in your directing resume.
Yeah.
How were you able to reconcile that? Because that must have been the greatest source of frustration for you. It feels at times like you've been cursed as a filmmaker more than others.
The reality is that my projects get reported and announced more than others. Like I can tell you the 3 movies that Alfonso tried and didn't do in his 6 years between Children of Men and Gravity. He was going to do one called A Man and His Shoe,
right.
A Boy and His Shoe, and another one that was about a bunch of teenagers and blah, blah, blah. And they don't get reported. For some reason, I get reported, I get announced, and then I have to own the fact that they happen or not happen. But it happens to everyone. I mean, the gap exists there, but I kind of felt good about the gap because I co-wrote 3 novels, produced 3 films, produced 2 animated films. I was not exactly sitting on my laurels, and co-wrote the trilogy, and I designed my 2 Hobbit movies completely, as much as I could, and I left all that there. But I actually, the thing that hurts for me is Mountains of Madness.
Yeah, that
one hurts because that's a horror movie. Like Crimson Peak is not a horror movie. Now Mountains of Madness is a horror movie. It was going to be a scary movie and a beautiful movie.
And infamously, you were like a week or 2 away with like Tom Cruise attached. I
was with Jim Cameron producing.
Yeah.
I mean, I that in the 80s with Carolco in a second,
So any movement lately on Mountains of Madness? Is that one of those things?
Again, like the coffee bean, I had dinner with Jim, and he said, "What are we going to do about it?"
Right.
Don Murphy and Susan Montford, always great allies, always keep it alive. And what I say is, let's do it when it's absolutely sure, because I honestly don't want to be dramatic, but it hurt a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I could be disappointed on that project again.
What about feelings for The Hobbit at this point? Have you sat down and watched the 3?
No, I haven't. And Peter and I are in a great relationship. We have a very clean relationship and communication. We're very friendly, and I think it's a sign of respect for me. It's almost like watching footage of your ex-wife on the beach. Exactly why do you want to watch? If it's good, it's bad. If it's worse, it's worse. I mean, there's no upside to it. And I respect and love his work as a filmmaker. And I'd rather be happy that I was part of it.
Sure. So Pacific Rim, which was the largest in terms of scale of a film that you've done, was it at all difficult to kind of retain kind of like your creativity, your control over that as the scale exponentially grew?
Nope. That movie was fully in my control.
No, it doesn't feel compromised in any way.
I hate to not have great anecdotes, but that movie, if you hate it or love it, I did it, and it was great. It was really hard to gauge the marketing of that movie because I always felt that the robots were pushed to the front and the monsters were not. They were almost kept like a secret.
Sure.
And I think the whole concept what attracted me was monsters and robots. That's what made my 11-year-old mental light bulb go up.
Right.
And I'll never know exactly if it could have been different. It was, a lot was made about the tracking, and tracking doesn't mean popularity. It means people knowing about it.
Yep.
We tested incredibly high. We got a great cinema score, meaning audiences were connecting, but no one knew. I mean, when the movie was opening, we were below grown-ups too in terms of awareness.
Right.
Now it's awareness, and that's a thing that worries me because I would have loved for people to know more about it.
Well, it's a crazy world when what a film grosses around 400 globally, and it's a gray area whether you get the green light or not for a sequel.
Yeah, 411, it's pretty good for.
Seems nice.
It's still my highest grossing movie.
And an original property. I mean, that's an achievement.
And Legendary always, the reason why they started Pacific Rim 2 is they showed me, look, we've made more money than this and this huge franchise's first movie.
Sure.
The fact is, what we need to do on the second one is you need to use everything we learned and make it for as tight a budget as you can and go for it,
So as we sit here today, I know in the last couple of days it's been talked about whether this is a go project or not, or it's on the shelf.
It's certainly not my next movie.
It's definitely not.
No, because with the push, you push the release date, so I feel compelled to go and do something small and weird. And then because I need like a breather and a little more madness in my life.
Yeah.
But in 3 weeks we are delivering a budget and a schedule.
Yeah.
And a new draft of the screenplay, and then the studio knows how much it costs, what is it about, and then they'll decide if they go ahead or not.
Is the small weird one something specific? Because you had mentioned doing like a black and white thing that was.
Yeah, I've learned, and I've learned it through the years. You want to make God laugh, tell him what your next movie is.
Today, hip-hop dominates pop culture, but it wasn't always like that. And to tell the story of how that changed, I want to take you back to a very special year in rap.
88, it was too much good music. The world was on fire.
Yeah. I'm Will Smith. This is Class of 88, my new podcast about the moments, albums, and artists that inspired a sonic revolution and secured 1988 as one of hip-hop's most important years. We'll talk to the people who were there. And most of all, we'll bring you some amazing stories. You know what my biggest memory from that tour is? It was your birthday.
Yes, and you brought me the Sade life-size cardboard cutout.
This is Class of 88, the story of a year that changed hip-hop.
Listen to Class of 88 wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge the entire series right now on the Amazon Music app or Audible.
Happy, Sad, Confused listeners, if you're anything like me, you have tried so many different kinds of breakfast protein bars. I found the one, though. It's Mosh, a sponsor of Happy, Sad, Confused. This week, Mosh is where it's at, guys. I've tried a bunch of different flavors. They are all delicious. How about banana bread infused with banana bits? It reimagines morning comfort. You can start your AM routine with, yes, actual fresh banana flavors, nutty goodness, and their brain fuel blend. The peanut butter chocolate is delicious. It's guilt-free decadence, plant-based protein, rich cocoa, smooth peanut butter, and their signature brain blend. 7 brain nutrients, 12 grams of protein, only 1 gram of sugar, and 7 to 8 grams of fiber. The Mosh bars are where it's at for that busy lifestyle. If you're looking for that solution to start your day off right, feeling good, providing all the nutrients you need, this is for you. And Mosh is an awesome company. They're founded by Patrick Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver. They are on a mission-driven brain health and wellness company that donates a portion of all proceeds to support women's brain research to the Women's Alzheimer's Movement at Cleveland Clinic. I've tried these myself, guys. They get the heartiest of endorsements from Josh Horowitz and Happy, Sad, Confused. Don't settle for a mediocre breakfast when you can nourish your body and mind with the fuel it needs to succeed. So whether you've got a busy day ahead of you, or you just want a quick and easy breakfast, Mosh's plant-powered bars will keep your brain and body fit, fueled, and feeling good so you can start your day right. Head to moshlife.com/happysad to save 20% off plus free shipping on your first 6-count plant-based trial pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on your first 6-count plant-based trial pack, which includes 2 of each mouth-watering flavor. moshlife.com/happysad.
Talking filmmakers, you talked about Hitchcock, you talked about George Miller. You've mentioned before, and every great filmmaker would mention him, Stanley Kubrick as an influence.
Kubrick, Cameron, Buñuel, Spielberg, Polanski, Buster Keaton, Chaplin. I mean,
who's the filmmaker that's no longer with us that you wish you could bend the ear of a little bit? Who would you want to talk to?
I would love to have met Hitchcock, right? Or Buñuel.
Yeah.
I mean, they are really, really people I find very interesting as people, you know.
What's your favorite Hitchcock film?
Depends on which side of Hitchcock. The great action Hitchcock is either 39 Steps or North by Northwest. The great melodrama Hitchcock, I would say, is Notorious. The great sort of Americana Hitchcock that defines Hitchcock is Shadow of a Doubt, without a doubt, you know, or Strangers in a Train.
Sure.
His Gothic romance, in a strange way, is not Rebecca but Suspicion. And one of my favorite late year films is Frenzy. And my favorite film growing up of Hitchcock was The Birds or I Confess. So, I mean, I really...
There's something for every mood.
It is, and Hitchcock is not a filmmaker. Hitchcock is cinema.
Yeah.
It's the whole of cinema in one single author.
Do you feel it's kind of fascinating to think like cinema is a very young art form still, and evolving exponentially. And we've talked over the years about video games, and you are a proponent. You've said before that this is an area where creativity is really exploding.
Yeah. There will be, yeah.
I mean, what do you worry about the cinematic experience? About will it look the same in 50 years? Will people be going to theaters together? And
well, it's like owning a horse stable and being worried about about automobiles. I mean, progress is progress, isn't it? I mean, language evolves, art evolves, and it evolves with technology. So we are facing a change, no doubt about it. Now, I say, if everybody keeps making great movies like Miller and Scorsese and Alfonso and Alejandro, everybody, I happen to think another one is Ridley Scott for me. Ridley Scott, I'm maybe in the minority, but I'm a huge fan of The Counselor, and I've seen it probably 30 times.
Oh, the batshit crazy, amazing movie.
I know it perfectly and so forth. So, I think everybody should keep making the best movies they can, and the art form will change. Now, one day we will be all people that did operetta, for sure. Because that's in the cards.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned Ridley. I just saw The Martian, which is like talking about a filmmaker pushing himself. I mean, from a visual standpoint, of course, it's amazing. It's got more humor than virtually any of his films ever. And to sort of see somebody pushing themselves in an area that maybe people don't think of themselves them for. Like, is there a genre that you appreciate as a fan that you don't necessarily feel like you have the tools to excel in?
Oh yes, many. I mean, of course. I mean, I would musical. I would. I mean, but can I make a parenthesis there, because another movie of him that I admire enormously is Prometheus.
Yeah.
And in the same way that I battle very much to say Crimson Peak is not horror, it's gothic romance, blah blah. Prometheus is one of the greatest adventure movies of the last 2 decades.
Why do you think there's so much hate? Because I actually agree with you. I really enjoy Prometheus.
It's an adventure movie.
People happens in terms of Alien, and it was that.
It's like Robert Louis Stevenson, Four Feathers, Joseph Conrad scope adventure. It's an amazing. It happens to be in space. It happens to be in the universe of Alien. Yeah. But it's an adventure film of people breaking molds and going places that they shouldn't be. It's really fascinating, and I just think the guy is amazing, and I think he's getting better and better, and his filmography includes at least 10 titles that you would kill for, absolutely. 15 titles that you would kill for.
Well, for you, what stimulates your creativity? Like what helps you kind of get the engine going when it's not?
A Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to see a movie?
Fails.
Is it going to see a movie? Does that get you going?
Yeah, I think that when you go see a movie that is staggering, I just saw Revenant.
Oh, did you?
And it's staggering.
Is it amazing?
Yeah, and when you see a movie, it sort of that moves you to tears about the craft and about the medium and about the humanity. Yeah, it's so great, and I think that it's not that you hold to yourself to those standards, but you can certainly aspire to them.
Sure.
Wherever you fall, whether you are a chapter in cinema or a funny footnote, you always need to dream and be in love with the medium in that way. And I think when you see a movie that beautiful, that powerful, you come out transformed.
Do you have in terms of franchise filmmaking, a favorite franchise, one that does elevate on a systematic basis? Like, do Bond films do it for you? Do any of like the comic book ones do it for you that are working on that level of art?
I like the Bonds. I do like the Bonds. I happen to enjoy the Mission Impossibles a lot.
Great,
I think that they are becoming more and more the personality of Tom Cruise. Like he is that brand in a beautiful way.
They're kind of like Bond of the '60s.
They are physically, and they're very muscular. They're very whimsical. Yeah. I think that the whole Man Who Knew Too Much concerto homage in the last one, the assassination in the theater was.
Oh, the opera house sequence is amazing.
Beautiful, and I'm not saying old-fashioned as something to decry. It's like a Stanley Donen or Hitchcock. Mm-hmm. Choreography, really beautiful.
Did you hear the recent comments that Spielberg made about the superhero genre, saying it's like cyclical, like the Western? He thinks it'll go away and it'll come back, and it's just the nature of things.
I think that things, rather than go away, things ebb and flow.
Yeah.
like the Western's never gone.
Yeah.
Horror, I mean, for us, like I'm in horror, I'm 50, and in my lifetime, horror has been dead 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And horror has been the hottest thing 6 or 7 times.
Right.
So it's ebb and flow. I think everything is ebbing and flowing, and no matter what genre, if a movie has purity and sincerity and power, it's going to flow to the top.
You came close to getting doing another comic book thing in terms of Justice League Dark, and I know we've talked about Thor was something that you almost did or flirted with for a time. Is there any impulse, because I mean Thor Ragnarok is something you've worked with Tom that's out there that they're looking for a director. Is that something that you could imagine being interested in?
I'm actually gravitating to the weirder stuff, man.
Still,
yeah. I feel really I'm in a stage when. If I was going to do pyrotechnics, they would need to be very intimately related to who I am or what I like.
Or your own universe in Pac Rim, I guess.
Possible,
right?
yeah. Pac Rim attracted me because we were going to do crazy stuff, and attracts me if it gets green lit. But I feel like
getting weird. Good. I encourage it. Is there an actor you're dying to work with, and one in particular that jumps out at you? Do you have?
I having just seen Revenant and having seen Wolf of Wall Street, I happen to just admire Leo, and
he'll go for it. He's
he's a big connoisseur of the weird and the kinky cinema.
Right.
We have an affinity for Todd Browning and freaks.
All right.
Huge affinity.
Is that true?
Yeah.
He's a Freaks fan.
He's a Freaks freak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
Very big, and I've known his dad longer than I've known him.
Yeah.
But his dad used to be an underground publisher and very involved in underground, and all that history of comics, I can talk with Leo or his dad very easily, with George, about Crumb, Richard Corbin, Jack Jackson.
Right.
Yeah.
I know he for a while he was developing like a Twilight Zone movie. I was intrigued by that to see what Leo would do with that.
Would be interesting.
Yeah. Is there working with actors over the years, do you feel like that was something that took a while to did you perfect a technique? Did CRONOS versus Crimson Peak, do you think you're working with on set differently?
Well, yes, hopefully. Yes. I do think you learn. I mean, I learned that brevity and intelligence in the direction, not complexity.
Yeah.
You don't wanna come out to an actor in the middle of a shooting day with an intellectual concern.
Right.
You don't want to come and say, remember, this is the moment where the character is remembering when he was a child. I mean, you come in with an activity.
It's more practical. It's just,
you are thinking of this, you're doing that, and a verb, and communicate it in 10 words or less, 20 words if you must, but don't go into a conference with the actor.
Yeah.
Give him tools, give him trust or give her trust, and be with them. And the other thing that I find important is be next to the camera.
Mm-hmm. Don't hide in Video Village.
Don't be in Video Village. I mean, I really, unless it's a complex shot that doesn't allow me to be next to the, I try not to be in Video Village. I'm with a little handheld monitor next to the camera.
Well, what happens when an actor is delivering a performance in just a different key, like a totally different kind of key than you need? Like, do you sort of accept it and sort of like, okay, we're going to explore this path? Or like at this point, do you feel like you can shift them towards what you have in your mind, or do you just sort of have to go with it?
The trickiest thing is tone. If you're going to deliver a certain genre of dialogue, and the actor is making it earnest, it just sounds worse.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need to make it lighter, or to assume, when you're delivering a Blade 2 line, the virus is spreading exponentially. They will soon overrun the city. Whatever it is, you want it to be almost pattern, banter. And when they are delivering something, for example, in Crimson Peak, is sort of a couple of notches overwrought into melodrama. You want to stay in that, and the way you correct that, if I may suggest something, is it's like shooting in a shooting range. If you're not reaching the target, you don't take one step or one step back. You take 5 steps forward and say, try it this other way.
Yeah.
And then
Not
5
a slight
steps
adjustment.
back.
You say
no, you
way over.
go, let's try this. And you kind of break it. You say, try it this much different, or this much louder, or something. Not little steps, bigger steps.
Do you ever give a line reading, or is that something?
No, I've never done. I mean, I've never done it also with my accent. It would need to be Treasure of Sierra Madre, you know.
Have you ever had to fire an actor?
Huh?
Have you ever had to fire an actor?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, maybe I conveniently forget.
Except for Ron Perlman on this one.
Ron Perlman was going to be Tom Hiddleston.
Right. Who's the most underrated person on a set? Who doesn't get the credit they deserve that you are leaning on, that it makes or breaks a
That's
production?
easy. The worst job in a set is a focus puller.
Yeah?
Of course.
It's just because
if he does his
minutely
job,
off, it's...
if his job is right 99.9% of the time, nobody cares. If his job is wrong one time, he's a complete moron and you want to kill him. You know, I think it's the toughest job on his set. It's also, people think his metrics and his technique.
Yeah.
It's pure instinct.
Yeah.
It's pure instinct. These are beautiful, beautiful craft. And I think it's the director's job to know what is at stake in all these little jobs. Because, and that's what I'm very thankful that I did about a dozen movies and about 20 episodes of TV before directing, working in different capacities. Because if you want to any day be in charge of a movie set, work on it.
Yeah.
Because then you know what the people working for you are feeling, you know?
When you're on the set of this one or on Pac Rim, and these sets are ginormous and it's insane, are you giddy just seeing what you've been able to kind of create and kind of like, this is all here because of me? Not in an ego way, but like it's a kid in a candy store, I would imagine.
That happened the first time Ron walked in as Hellboy.
Yeah.
In full costume and makeup. I was like, you know.
We've done half the job already.
I was super happy. I remember on Pacific Rim when we built the compods in a real gimbal to shake them, and I got the first footage with the cranes going at them, and it was a very difficult, technically very difficult movie, and I thought, this is fantastic, you know. And it happens on Crimson Peak when we walk into the house.
Absolutely.
I mean, I really wanted the house to be, along with the wardrobe, to be an instrument of storytelling, to tell you who they are and sort of evidence their state of mind by showing the house.
Sure.
You know, and the moment we entered the house, I felt, this is fantastic. You know?
Going into slight spoiler territory, but there's a murder in this one that involves kind of like a bloody tear that is just a great image. Is that something that's, like, where did that come from? Do you recall?
Well, I thought it was important to have a final moment for that character that would be emotional. I tried different things. I had lines that didn't work. I had a moment between them that didn't work, and I finally said, you know what, let's put the tear, let's do the tear, because we were congesting the eye with blood. Yeah. And I said, what if we have a little overflow, you know?
Is there a scene in particular in Crimson Peak that is the one that brings a huge grin to your face?
Yeah, I mean, there's many. I mean, I honestly, this is my third favorite film I've done, but I can tell you, if I had to choose from the beauty, I would choose the waltz. The waltz scene in Crimson Peak is, I think, beautiful, gorgeous, and it kind of encapsulates a whole courtship in one single scene, and Tom is holding a candle, and it really never went out. It really just stayed up. That's how good a dancer he is.
I'm just glad you convinced him to wear the pants for it, because his initial instinct wouldn't have worked for the final product.
The G-string was wrong. But the other thing that I remember I love the murders. Yeah. But I think that the most sickening scene for me is when she's feeding Mia. Yeah. When Lucille is feeding Mia some porridge. It was a really intense scene and a very violent scene without anything happening. You know?
It's a truly great piece of work. I'm dying to see it again, and I will very soon. Thanks so much as always for stopping by, man. You're one of the best out there, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
See you later, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused.
Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.